Case 1. Vanished for 20 years. Found because of TikTok, the case of Michelle Carter. For 2 decades, Michelle Carter was nothing more than a name on a faded missing persons flyer. She vanished without a trace in 2005, on a quiet afternoon in Portland, Oregon. The case went cold, and colder, until one unexpected moment in 2025. A TikTok video changed everything. Michelle was 23 when she disappeared. She left her apartment around 2 p.m. to walk her dog, Daisy. The dog returned home alone 2 hours later. Michelle didn't. There were no signs of struggle. No witnesses. No surveillance footage. Only a half-finished cup of coffee left on her front porch. Her family searched endlessly. Posters. Vigils. TV interviews. But days turned into months. Months into years. And eventually, her file was moved to the cold case unit. Fast forward to February 2025. A street photographer named Aiden Reeves, known for capturing candid portraits of strangers, posted a TikTok titled, "Faces of the Forgotten." In that 30-second clip, an elderly homeless woman with piercing green eyes and a tattered coat stares blankly at the camera. The video goes viral. And among the thousands of comments, one stood out. "That looks exactly like Michelle Carter. My sister. She vanished 20 years ago." The comment came from Kelsey Carter, Michelle's younger sister. Authorities were contacted immediately. And within 48 hours, DNA tests confirmed the impossible. Michelle Carter was alive. Michelle had been abducted by a man named Thomas Ridley, a former cab driver with a clean record. He kept her in a secluded cabin in the mountains for years, using isolation, threats, and manipulation to erase her identity. When Ridley died of a heart attack in 2022, Michelle was left to wander, confused, without ID, and mentally unstable. She had no memory of her real name. No idea where she came from. Just a foggy sense that someone had once stolen her life. Though Thomas Ridley died before he could be charged, the discovery led to investigations into 3 other missing women from the same area in the early 2000s. Michelle is now in care, undergoing therapy, and slowly rebuilding pieces of her identity. Her sister visits her every week. And while full recovery may never come, her story has become a symbol. That even in the digital chaos of the internet, a face can be seen. A life can be found. Michelle's case reminds us that time doesn't always bury the truth. Sometimes, it simply waits for someone to look close enough. Case 2. DNA in a love letter, the Sarah Blake case. It looked like nothing more than a teenage keepsake. A faded love letter, folded neatly and sealed with red lipstick. It sat in an old box in Sarah Blake's childhood bedroom for over 30 years. But in 2025, that letter became the key to solving her murder. And to catching a killer who thought he had escaped forever. Sarah Blake was 17 when she was found dead in the woods outside of Ashland, Virginia, in 1994. Her body was discovered by hikers, partially buried under loose leaves, her backpack placed beside her. There were no defensive wounds. No fingerprints. And no signs of sexual assault. The investigation hit dead end after dead end. Everyone assumed it had been a random act of violence. Until eventually, the trail went cold. Her family buried her with that letter in her hands. It was her favorite, they said. Written by someone she once trusted. In late 2024, Sarah's parents finally sold the family home. While packing up, her younger brother Jake, now in his 40s, found a box of Sarah's old belongings. Among them, another version of the same letter, tucked in her high school diary. On a whim, he turned it over to authorities. Thanks to a new forensic program called TracePrintX, launched in 2025, even minute skin cells left from handling an object decades ago could now be amplified and analyzed. In this letter, it held a full DNA profile. The DNA matched Darren Holt, a former neighbor and close friend of Sarah's older cousin. He had visited the Blake house multiple times in the early 90s. No one suspected him. He was polite, quiet, unassuming. But investigators discovered that Darren had a secret past. He'd been questioned, though never charged, in the disappearance of another girl in 1992, 2 towns over. And now, with solid DNA evidence tying him to the letter, and fibers matching clothing found on Sarah's body, the case was reopened. Under pressure, Holt confessed. He claimed it was an accident. That Sarah had threatened to reveal a secret about him, and that he just wanted to scare her. He was arrested in March 2025 and is now awaiting sentencing. For 3 decades, Sarah's murder was a whisper of the past. A story no one could finish. But a simple act, keeping a letter, gave her family the ending they deserved. Sarah's mother said it best in a press interview. The truth was always there. It just needed science to speak loud enough to hear it. The Blake case proves that even the smallest objects, a page of paper, a sealed kiss, can hold echoes of justice. And sometimes, all it takes is a second look. Case 3. The Body in the Walls, the Forgotten Basement Case of 1997. The house had been empty for years. Boarded windows. Cracked brick. Locals called it cursed. But in the summer of 2025, when a new owner began renovations, workers discovered a secret room hidden behind layers of drywall in the basement. Inside was a skeleton. And the truth behind a young woman's disappearance from nearly 3 decades ago. In 1997, Elena Marlowe, a 21-year-old college student in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, went missing after attending a party a few blocks from her apartment. She never made it home. No signs of a struggle. Her phone and purse were later found tossed into a public trash bin. The investigation stalled. No witnesses. No clues. The last ping from her phone was traced near her own neighborhood. After a year with no leads, she was declared legally dead. The case, forgotten. In May 2025, a couple bought the rundown Marlowe Street property for cheap, intending to flip it. During demolition, construction workers noticed a strange hollow sound in one wall. When they broke through, they found a narrow concrete room that didn't exist on the blueprints. Inside, human remains, wrapped in a decaying bedsheet. A rusted locket. A plastic student ID, Elena Marlowe. And on the far wall, scratched into the cement, "He told me no one would ever find me." The homeowner in 1997 was Henry Belmont, a retired construction worker. He passed away in 2011. But forensic teams found partial fingerprints on the ID card, and, more crucially, DNA beneath Elena's fingernails, preserved due to the cold, sealed room. That DNA matched Rick Belmont, Henry's son, who still lived in the city. Rick had been questioned briefly in 1997. He was at the same party Elena attended. At the time, he had an alibi from 2 friends. But in 2025, when re-questioned, those same 2 men recanted. They admitted Rick had asked them to lie. Faced with evidence, Rick Belmont confessed. He had followed Elena home from the party. He claimed he was drunk and angry at the world. The argument turned violent. And when he realized what he'd done, he convinced his father to help him hide the body, using Henry's skills to build the hidden wall. The house was then slowly abandoned, left to rot with the truth inside. Rick Belmont was sentenced to life in prison without parole. For Elena's parents, who had moved away long ago, it was a bitter, painful closure. They said, "We always believed she was close. We just never imagined this close." Some crimes don't disappear. They sleep, buried behind bricks in silence, until someone dares to tear the wall down. Case 4. The Retirement Home Confession, the Lisa Monroe Case. In 1973, Lisa Monroe walked out of her college library and vanished into the night. She was 19 years old. A bright student. A devoted daughter. And for 52 years, her disappearance was one of Illinois' oldest unsolved cases. Until a whisper in a nursing home unraveled the truth. And a murderer finally spoke, before time ran out. Lisa was last seen leaving the University of Illinois library around 9:30 p.m. She had a backpack full of books and a half-eaten granola bar in her coat pocket. Security footage, grainy and black and white, captured her walking alone down Birch Avenue. She never made it back to her dorm. For months, search teams combed rivers, fields, and abandoned buildings. No body was ever found. No motive. No suspect. Eventually, the case was shelved. Her family held on to hope for decades. But by 2025, both her parents had passed, never knowing what happened. In March 2025, Harold Dunning, an 81-year-old man in a Chicago retirement home, began showing signs of dementia. He told a nurse he had done something bad a long time ago. The nurse thought it was confusion until Harold said, "She had a blue coat. Her name was Lisa. I buried her near the oak tree." Shocked, the nurse reported it. Authorities interviewed Harold the next morning. At first, he denied everything. Then, quietly, he asked, "Is she still missing?" Harold Dunning had worked as a maintenance man at the university in the 1970s. He confessed that he offered Lisa a ride on a rainy night, then drove her into the woods. He claimed it was never supposed to go that far. A fight. A push. A fall. Panic. He wrapped her body in a tarp and buried her behind his family's farm near Champaign, beneath a large oak tree. In April 2025, police excavated the location. Remains were found, along with remnants of a blue coat and Lisa's university ID, weathered but intact. DNA confirmed the identity. Since Harold was mentally unfit to stand trial, he was placed under 24-hour psychiatric care. He passed away 2 months later. There was no justice in the traditional sense. No trial. No sentence. But for Lisa's surviving relatives, her niece and 2 cousins, it was closure. Painful, but real. They held a small ceremony near the oak tree where her remains were found. One cousin said, "He thought time would erase what he did. But truth always waits to be heard." Some cold cases fade from headlines. But they never fade from memory. And sometimes, even silence. Talks. Case 5. Shattered Glass and Artificial Intelligence, the 2001 hit-and-run case. It happened in a flash. A rainy night. A young man walking home from work. A speeding car. A sickening thud. And then, nothing. No witnesses. No license plate. No justice. For over 2 decades, the hit-and-run death of Marcus Whitfield remained a haunting mystery in Cleveland, Ohio. Until technology in 2025 did something no human eye could. It reassembled the truth from broken glass. Marcus was 27. A warehouse worker. He had just clocked out after the night shift and was walking along Brookline Avenue when a vehicle struck him from behind and sped off into the storm. He died on impact. All that remained was a trail of shattered headlight glass, tire marks, and Marcus's umbrella, crushed beneath a tire. Police collected every piece of debris. They interviewed every driver in the area. But without a clear witness, the trail went cold. In 2025, a new AI forensic system called GlassMatch was rolled out across multiple cold case divisions in the U.S. The software could analyze microscopic patterns in shattered automotive glass and match them to specific vehicle models, even production batches. Marcus's file was fed into the system. Within hours, GlassMatch narrowed the source of the headlight shards to a 1999 Dodge Stratus, manufactured in a 3-month window at a Michigan plant. Police cross-referenced DMV records and local ownership history from that year. One name stood out. Devin Schultz, a former local mechanic who sold the vehicle just 2 weeks after Marcus was killed. The car no longer existed. But the AI wasn't done. Investigators used archived CCTV footage, enhanced with modern video reconstruction algorithms, to analyze street cameras near Brookline Avenue. A blurry shape once dismissed as useless was digitally reconstructed, revealing a Dodge Stratus speeding past, one headlight flickering. A parking ticket from 2 days after the accident showed the same vehicle, with front-end damage. When confronted with the evidence, Devin broke down. He claimed it was an accident, that Marcus had appeared suddenly in the rain. But instead of stopping, Devin panicked. He repaired the car, sold it, and moved across town. For 24 years, he lived with the guilt and thought the past had buried itself. In June 2025, Devin Schultz pled guilty to vehicular homicide and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. For Marcus's sister, the discovery brought tears and peace. I thought he was forgotten. But something, remembered. The AI team behind Glassmatch said this was the 5th cold case closed in just 3 months since the technology launched. And the beginning of many more. Justice doesn't always come from a badge. Sometimes, it comes from code. From machines that see what we miss and rebuild the stories we lost. Because even shattered glass can point to the truth.